Overwatch League is well into its third stage, and in my opinion, Stage 3 is the most important stage of the entire season. At this point, there's usually a few teams who look to be playoff locks and a few who look to be out of it, but nothing has actually been set in stone yet. Stage 3 is the optimal time for teams who are ahead to solidify their status. If you're in that giant cluster in the middle, now is when you have to make a move. And if you're in the back, your playoff window is closing fast unless something changes. So how did everyone do this week to achieve those goals? Let's see. Welcome to the 7-second summary. Here's how it works. I'm going to go through every team in the Overwatch League in alphabetical order and tell you my thoughts on how they did in the past week. The catch? I have just 7 seconds to talk about each team. As I go through, there will be 5 components on the screen. The first will be the logo of the team that I'm talking about, and below that I'll put their overall match scores as well as their overall placement. Then I'll have the results of their games for the past week and my thoughts, just a transcript of what I'll be saying, and finally a score overall from 1 to 10. When I'm done, I'll take my teams with the 3 highest and 3 lowest scores and talk about them in more depth and tell you why I thought they were so high or so low. To end off the video, I'll take a look at next week's matches and recommend 1 match per day and why I'm excited for it. If you can only watch 1 match a day, these are the ones you watch, in my opinion. It's also worth mentioning that if a team didn't play this week, I won't be talking about them. With that out of the way, let's get started. The best 0-4 team I've ever seen. Please don't let this be what I think this is. That's a key win after week 1. Can you please beat a good team? A forecast of rain in more ways than one. You really need to win these to make playoffs. Just taking a map off the Titans justifies a top 5 ranking. Wow. Wow!
Wow.
A solid win against a good team. Keep it up. I'm more and more impressed by this team. Congrats, you made it out of the Pepega tier. You should have won this, and you did. Good job. Have you gotten better, or have other teams just gotten worse? Please beat a good team. Well, the streak had to end somewhere. Good on you for not falling in a rut, though. Don't worry, Soul. Painting a router gold is extra anyways. They are continuing to quietly impress. I'm just not sure if this was the right choice. The streak continues. The Justice haven't won a map this stage. Just saying.
Defeat.
Look, Toronto, I applaud you. I really do. You lived up to your name by becoming the first team in Overwatch League history to move from an all-Korean roster to a mixed roster, picking up Sharik and Gods from your own academy team. The question is, was it worth it? I don't know. Now, to be fair to the Defiant, introducing a new language to the team at this point in the season has to be tough. That doesn't just happen overnight, so communication issues from language are certainly possible, and even expected. But in the end, you haven't won either of your games this stage so far, and games against Paris and even London could have been winnable. I love seeing new talent in the league, especially people like Sharik and Gods, who I've been watching in the Tier 2 scene for a while. But was Yakpung and Envy the problem? Maybe they're not the best part of the team, and unless there was some behind-the-scenes stuff I don't understand, I just don't get it. So why swap your entire tank line to a new language, especially at a key time like this? I don't know. Maybe they saw something in scouting that I haven't, but I'm honestly not impressed so far. Am I ready to give up? Not at all. Like I said, growing pains are expected. But when you're in 12th place in the overall standings, growing pains are not something that you want to be dealing with. For the sake of the Defiant, I hope they figure themselves out sooner rather than later.
Victory.
It took being the biggest non-Titan challenger to the Shock in Stage 2 to do it, but the Dragons are finally getting the recognition that they truly deserve as a top-tier team. The Dragons were running Somber Goats before it was cool, okay? They were the ones who originally got super mad about it on the Watchpoint Toast show, and if the meta continues to move towards Somber Goats, the Dragons could find themselves in a position to be one of the best teams in the league. Of course, Ding has been the star of the show from the very beginning, but I also want to point out players like Gamsu, DM, and Koma, who have been very quietly been exceptional recently. As this team has continued to play together, their synergy has become more and more apparent, and in a meta like this, synergy is so unbelievably important. In contrast to like the Mayhem, the Dragons letting go of Guardian tells me that this team does know the direction that they're going in. They have a plan. Unfortunately, Guardian isn't a part of it, but that's okay. I expect for the Dragons to continue to improve, and I could even see them being a dark horse pick to take this whole thing. Can you imagine how amazing that would be? Hey guys, just adding on to this, unscripted, to talk for a second about the fact that the Dragons have picked up Envy from the Defiant. Now, honestly, I was surprised by this. I thought that the Dragons were the kind of team that had proved that maybe they didn't need a great D.Va player. But now that this trade has gone through, it makes me wonder if the only reason why the Dragons are so insistent on Somber Goats was because they weren't really confident in Guardian or Gaguri for their D.Va play. I don't know, I'm very interested to see what direction they're gonna go with this.
Defeat.
Another week and another loss for the Mayhem. Frankly, at this point, I and about 90% of the community are ready to give up on this team until at least next season. Look, I hate to completely give up on a team, but the Mayhem are still trying to find their identity and even figure out who they're actually gonna play. To be honest, Zephyr has actually lasted a lot longer as a starter than I thought he would, so good on him for that, I guess. I didn't expect the Fate move to have any sort of instant impact, as Fate has never seemed like a team-shaping main tank like Fissure, Mono, or Bumper, and that's been correct so far. While raw stats aren't the best marker of performance, especially on main tank, if you look at Fate and Swan stats side by side, you'll see that they score pretty close in most categories. The biggest difference is that Fate does more damage in exchange for less final blows, which really just comes down to playstyle. But okay, I got a little off track, but my point is that I don't think the Mayhem are just one player signing away from instant success. They don't even know what they are yet. That being said, I am interested in the moves that the Mayhem will make in the coming weeks, especially with Rain now in the fold. Rain was formerly a main support for O2 Blast, and a potential change at main support, a position that tends to do a lot of calling, tells me that things are still very much in flux for the Mayhem, and probably won't get better anytime soon. To the three of you still holding out hope for a playoff berth, I admire your loyalty. Hey guys, just adding on to the end of this video, cause whoa, okay, we just added on 3 more players. While I can't say I know too much about Karien, Gargoyle, and DPI, I am very excited to see that they're finally making some adjustments to their frontline, which most people assume to be the weakest part of the Mayhem. In fact, this acquisition has been rumored for a long time, but the Mayhem were just waiting on Visa, Brubles, and stuff to announce it. Also, the fact that Karien, Gargoyle, and DPI all come from the same team brings a big level of synergy with them that I think the Mayhem desperately need right now. Is it enough to turn things around this season? I don't know, but maybe it's a sign of some better things to come.
Victory.
I kinda feel bad for Gladiators fans, cause whenever I get to their team in a situation like this, it feels like I don't really have anything to say other than team good. But that really has been the Gladiators so far. They've just quietly been getting better and better, more and more cohesive, which is like how a good team should be. However, something interesting that I do want to point out is the fact that this week the Gladiators have put in Surefour full time. Before this, Surefour would only really be in the game to play Bastion and bunker comps or stuff like that, and he still does, but he has taken over the Brigitte position full time over Hydration, which I'm both impressed and interested in. It's been no secret that I don't love Hydration's Brig, so experimentation in that position is great. Also, Decay's flexibility is crazy. He's a lot like Prophet, like in dive meta you could put him in on Tracer or Genji and you would get a top tier performance no matter what. So it's fair to assume that Decay can cover any holes that are left by Hydration leaving. And so far, Surefour's Brig has been pretty good. I've actually been very impressed with Surefour's ability to grind a hero and become Overwatch League level at it. It was Ludo last year and Brig now, and that requires a ton of mental toughness and adaptability, which has kept him on top in an industry with ridiculously high turnover rates. So good for him, and I'm glad to see the Gladiators are taking advantage of such a great talent.
Defeat.
Here's the deal. It's getting really hard to believe that the Boston Uprising actually want to win. And here's why. Over the 2 seasons of Overwatch League, or 1.5, whatever, the Uprising have impressed everyone by picking up relatively unknown players before the Overwatch League who had insane amounts of talent, which they could show on stage. Gamzu, Striker, Note, Neko, Fusions, AimGod, these are all players who had doubts going into the season and blew them out of the water, which is great. These players are almost definitely cheaper than the big names, and playing Moneyball isn't unheard of in professional sports leagues at all. But what do the Uprising do when a player has found success? They sell him. Gamzu, sold. Neko, sold. Note, traded. Striker, sold. Fusions, they tried to trade him, and with AimGod suddenly missing from the Uprising starting roster, I wouldn't be surprised to see if he goes soon as well. The Uprising strategy seems to be buying players who are under the radar and selling them when they make a name for themselves. That's not Moneyball, that's the stock market, and it has happened way too many times to be coincidental. From what I can tell, the Uprising as an organization, not the players by the way, that's important, but the organization are a team whose goals are to make money first and win second. And until they prove me otherwise, I just can't respect a team with that mentality.
Victory!
To tackle the crazy topic of the Outlaws for you, I want to bring out a comment that I got quite recently on my Burning Questions Revisited video. So Tom Peace asked, if you had done the video now, would you have changed your decision on the Outlaws, considering they took NYXL to map 5 and were able to beat the Shock? And Tom, the answer to that question is no. In fact, I actually feel more validated in my opinion in that video now that another week has gone by, and here's why. In that video, I stated that the Outlaws had the players to succeed in this league, and they just didn't have the infrastructure or coaching necessary to make really anything happen. But just a few days ago, it was finally announced that Immortals had taken ownership of Infinite Esports, aka Optic and the Outlaws' parent company. Now, since I know I'll get a few questions in the comments, yes, Immortals also own the Valiant, and yes, it is illegal for league rules for an org to own 2 Overwatch League teams. Therefore, Immortals has set aside a separate group to run the Outlaws until a fully third-party group can be found, which I'd imagine is as soon as possible. Anyways, while I'm not sure if Immortals were immediately able to give the Outlaws some kind of amazing internal support, but if a few tweets from Flame are any indication, knowing that you have a stable owner at all really eased a lot of the stress within the org, and it showed in their play. From my point of view, the Outlaw success has 2 main factors. One, the Outlaws are playing more to their strengths, letting Dante play more Sombra, letting Linkser and Jake flex more. In fact, this week Kumat and Spree were largely benched, so all 3 DPS players could be on the field at once, which makes them really unpredictable. They could play anything from quad DPS to goats and be at least fairly comfortable. But, don't play goats. Just don't play goats. If you watched them versus Shock on Eichenwald, you should know, don't play goats. But secondly, the team is playing with more confidence than I've seen in months. Players like Raucus, Muma, Dante, Jake, they look loose and are having fun again. This, I think, is the instant impact of the Immortals transfer. Stress relief can do wonders for teamwork, and going through this as a team could bring them even closer. Look, the Outlaws are 2-1 right now, and they have games against the Mayhem, Justice, and Eternal this stage. All of a sudden, the Outlaws look to be in a prime position to make the playoffs for the first time since Season 1, Stage 1. As far as next week goes, on Thursday, I would recommend watching the Hangzhou Spark versus the Dallas Fuel. Dallas are off to a weaker start this stage and need a win to get back on track, but standing in their way is a Spark team who most are starting to consider as a top 5 team in the league. A win here could do just that, as they currently sit in 6th in the overall standings. On Friday, you gotta watch the Shanghai Dragons versus the LA Gladiators. Sure, NYXL and Spitfire match is a classic heavyweight bout, but I'm actually really excited to see how these 2 teams stack up. The Dragons and the Gladiators have established themselves as contenders, but a little bit below, the Titans and the Shock. But the winner of this match will get a huge boost in the public eye. On Saturday, I'll take the Hangzhou Spark versus the Seoul Dynasty. This is a fun rematch of the winner go-home matchup at the end of Stage 2, and you know the Dynasty have revenge on their mind. Plus, the Dynasty are super fun to watch, as you have no idea who they're going to put in for any given map. Finally, on Sunday, I'll take the Uprising versus the Eternal. Mostly because this looks like it's probably the most evenly matched game of the day. To their credit, Both of these teams like to experiment, which makes them interesting for me to watch. As a runner-up, I'm interested to see what adjustments the Fuel make for the rematch against the Hunters. And there it is, this week's 7-second summary in the books. What did you think about my ratings, and what are you excited about for next week? Let me know in the comments. As always, if you like this video and want to see more, make sure you leave a like and subscribe. I make competitive Overwatch videos once a week, and I would be just so happy if you watched them. Until next time though, that's all from me. Don't get tilted.